Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I've got up for you this skin tone. I've been really wanting to show how I do dark skin tone because I think it's not something perhaps we're all confident enough to colour. It is a bit more tricky than the pale skin tones, even tan skin tones, and getting this sort of balance between the browns and the pinks can be a little bit tricky. First off, I should say that I have to thank the wonderful Amberle Silencia, who I will link down below, for her combo. This is based on her wonderful dark skin tone video, where she showed an amazing combo, and mine is not the same. I've changed a few of the pencils, but it is based on hers. So please go also check out her video because she does a fantastic job. And hopefully this will give you a bit of inspiration and a bit of confidence to try a new skin tone. I'm going to be using Prismacolor pencils today. This is one I did earlier, in the words of Blue Peter. And we're going to be doing the exact same page, just slightly bigger one. So, we're going to start off, let me bring this up, with Burnt Ochre. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to base the entire face with this burnt ochre. Now, one thing that I would typically do when colouring is I would typically have sharp pencils. However, when I'm basing like this, I don't want any lines. So I've actually got quite a blunt pencil. And that just helps get a very light touch. Move this up a bit. And a very light base, which is what we want. We just want to cover the tooth of the paper. Leave these parts here because it's going to be the eyes. As I always say, these first few layers are always just the rough base layers. Okay. We're going to continue in the burnt ochre. What I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start applying a bit more pressure so that the colour comes up a bit more. So now we're going to start planning where the shadows are going to be. So, as I've done this portrait once before, I'm at a slight advantage. But what we're going to do is going to be shadows obviously where the hair is. Down here, the eyebrow. Now, just like if I was doing a pale skin portrait, I'm still going to leave that line between the black here and where I want the shadow. You still have a reflected highlight. Which you'll be able to see better once I get darker colour down. Okay, if excuse me, I'm just going to go quickly back to when I did just to take a look where I've got these shadows. So I'm going to draw the nose in. As you can see, the nose is going to curve. I'm going to put in this highlight around the chin as well. Okay. I'm not going to make it identical. It's impossible to make two colouring pages identical. Nor would I really want to. each creative process is different. So, to draw a nose, as you can see, I've drawn because Hannah Lynn doesn't put them in, I'm going to draw a sweeping line from sort of the top of the lash line here down to the tip of her nose in a lovely in an arc, in a smooth arc, which is daunting at first, but there we go. Nose. Nope, don't be afraid to do it. You don't have to, but I like adding a nose in. I like having even my cartoony portraits quite realistic. But the reason I choose Hannah Lynn pages is I can do the skin pretty quickly on these. If this was another portrait, we might be here for several hours, which should be too long to upload. Okay, new colour. This is Terracotta. So we're going to start now deepening the shadow. Now Terracotta is it has a lovely red undertone. It's also going to warm up the colours. And don't worry about going over the lines. I know some people remove them. I put them back in, either with a fine liner or a black Posca. And I will show you how to put the blush in as well. But that's at a later stage. And not something you have to do if you don't want to. I usually put a bit of makeup on my Hannah Lynn girls. Okay, so let's talk about where I'm putting these shadows. The round across each cheek. Because of the way her head is tilted, it's tilted to this side. From a lighting point of view, I'm expecting the light to be coming from this side. I'm expecting it coming from the right, hitting the right side of her face, and then putting her left face side more in shadow. Hence the reason this is the shadowed side of her nose. And there's more shadow over this part here from the hair falling into the brow. You could do it the other way around, but if this was a photo and art is more, it's quite a similar kind of thing. It's more flattering for the light to come from this side, because that's the way her head is then tilted into the light. It's just a bit more flattering. And whether it's art or whether it's photography, we always want to make the subject look flattering. Okay, so there's always a shadow underneath the lip here, and the chin protrudes, so you've always got shadows here where it dips back in. You can see now the line of reflected light I'm leaving really well. Okay, so I'm going to come back quite quickly with the burnt ochre. Just to blend that out a bit. Okay. Right, next up is going to be the first shadow colour, Chesnut. Now, it's a little bit of a harder colour to describe. It's sort of, it's almost a purplish brown. And this is going to start building up the shadows with this colour. Again, the trick is always to go in relatively light layers. I'm doing this directly in the book, and I find the Amazon CreateSpace paper takes layers pretty well. What I found is it likes wax pencils. Doesn't seem to like oil whatsoever, but it will take wax. Don't get me wrong, you can't do tons of layers, but you can do enough. Okay, now don't be scared to come in and deepen that line for the nose. Next up is Espresso. You could also use sepia. I use Espresso, mainly to save my sepia, which is getting quite blunt these days. It's getting very short. But also, they are different tones. And I actually do prefer the Espresso for this. It's a bit more of a neutral brown. If you just return back to this version, you can see that the shadows are mainly, the deep shadows, mainly going to be round where the hair falls and the edges of her face. I'm not using a hard pressure. I'm still using a pretty light pressure because this is a dark colour. I don't want to go too dark too soon. You can always add colour. Removing it is a lot harder. You can't erase coloured pencil completely. The part here on either side of the lips where they dip inwards for a smile. But I'm going to come back with the chestnut to blend that out. So next is black. Focus. I'm using the Lightfast because it's my favourite one. You can use the Prismacolor one. As long as it's a wax pencil, it honestly doesn't matter. So this is for the darker shadows. I will add some down on the cheeks, but very, very, very lightly. It's just to push the contrast. I don't want much. And I'm going to come back in with the espresso to blend that. What I'm basically trying to achieve here is by coming back in, adding the shadows, blending the shadows, you're going to get smaller and smaller increments of blank paper left to do the highlights. Okay, for those who want to add blush, this is Henna, which I'm going to add to the apples of her cheeks, the top of the cheeks here, and the shadows. Bring that out a bit. And this is Carmine red, pinkish red, and then I'm going to gently bring that out to where the highlights will be. When you're applying makeup, whether that be eye, cheek, makeup like this, blush, always have some skin tone colour down first. It doesn't matter that you cover it. The whole point is there has to be skin tone underneath the makeup, because that's how it's applied. It's on top and you need the skin tone to be beneath, to show through ever so slightly. Alright, I'm going to come back with the Terracotta. That will look just a bit out of place for it. Won't we'll blend it out in a moment. And we'll tone it down. Burnt ochre. Now I think if I compare this to the one I've previously done, yeah, we're looking pretty similar. I think I need to add a bit more espresso to this part of the nose here. I'm not trying to completely copy it, I'm just trying to show you how I did it. Now we can go over that makeup with burnt ochre. See, it's toned it down already. So let's start going a bit more into the highlights. This is Nectar. Again, a colour very unique to the Prismas. We're going to start setting the highlight tones in this. Albeit I am doing this, let me just quickly come back burnt ochre up here. Albeit I am doing this in Prismacolor, I am almost certain I could probably figure out combos for certain Luminance and the Light Fast. What you need is a set of pencils with a mixture of range of tones of browns. I'm going to be leaving the bridge of her nose, most of her nose, tops of the cheeks, all with highlights. I'm back with burnt ochre. As you can see, I'm going a bit more of a medium pressure now as I want to blend this out. Right. I'm going to put a light layer quickly of the nectar. Okay, now I've got peach. Just as if I was doing a pale skin tone, here comes peach. I find this is really good for the highlights, highlighted areas. It really adds a warm pinkish tone. Still leaving parts of the cheek untouched here where there's always a little triangle in the shadowed areas where the light will touch, and up here on the brow. Okay. And you can very lightly add in a layer of peach over where those highlighted areas are. And here comes it will seem a little bit strange at first, but here actually comes buff titanium from the Luminance. This is the only Luminance, but I can't seem to be able to do skin without my buff titanium. And this is to blend the highlights. So now I'm going to go in with quite a firm pressure, because at this point I'm basically burnishing. Okay, now back in with the burnt ochre, because now I've got the highlights set in, I can deepen. I know what my lightest parts are, so I can come back in and deepen. once you've got the base of the skin down, it's all then about fiddling with it. Okay. Now these highlights, as you can see, they're a little bit pale. If you compare them to the original, they're a bit pale. And that's because with a very light hand, I'm going to go over that buff titanium. But I can't emphasize how lightly I am doing this. You're kissing the paper with the pencil. It is just a very light movement. I'm gonna blend in with a bit of the peach. And then come back with the buff titanium. To smooth it out all over again. And those are the highlights. Alright, so here I've got Chesnut, because I think some of these shadows still need a bit more deepening. But like I said, this now is the stage that you work on it until you're happy with it. I will work on portraits up to 4 hours sometimes until I'm happy with it. Which is an extremely long time. You don't have to do that. That's what happens when you love your layers like me. And you think, oh, what, just one more layer. And then one more layer becomes 100. Some nectar to help blend. The nectar acts sort of as the mid-tone along with the burnt ochre. And for the reflected light, I'm going to go into the nectar first with a bit of the burnt ochre on top. Chestnut again to define the area between reflected light and the shadow. Coming with a bit more espresso. And I have henna again, because I'm going to deepen this makeup so it stands out a bit more. Back with the pink Carmine. And then blend that with the peach. I think there we go, more or less. I think you can see that that is the same skin tone as that. The highlights actually look a little bit, I think, brighter on camera than they are in real life. In real life, they're not quite as bright as they sort of appear on screen. You can always tone it down with more burnt ochre and more nectar. But that is how I do it. And I hope you can see that it is actually pretty easy to do a darker skin tone. And you should definitely try it on your portraits because it adds a whole new thing to your repertoire. You can do so many different kinds of portrait then. You can do fair skin tones, tan skin tones, and beautiful dark skin tones like this. I hope it was helpful. For any questions about this skin tone or just colouring skin in general, leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.